When I was lying on the operating table waiting for a family member to sign the consent form, my man was holding another woman, drinking with her to soothe her emotions. That was the moment I realized that the client he always talked about was actually his mistress. Later, she moved into my home pregnant with his child, wearing my ring and using my money to rest and nurture the pregnancy. And he personally took the money meant to save my mother's life and forced me to kneel and apologize to the other woman. Everyone thought I would keep being sensible, patient, and resigned. Until the day I held his uncle's hand, stood at a wedding altar, and personally destroyed everything he had worked so hard to build, bit by bit. I was lying on the operating table, my stomach hurting as if it were being twisted by knives. The doctor said surgery was required immediately. It was acute appendicitis. I called Evan 7 times. He answered the first 3, saying he was busy handling client PR. The next 4 calls went unanswered. The nurse looked at the emergency contact section on my chart and sighed. "Where's your family?" "He's busy," I said. Even I found it ridiculous after saying it. The anesthesiologist was ready to administer anesthesia, but they needed a family member's signature. My hands were shaking, not from the pain, but from fear. When fear reaches its extreme, you can't even make a sound. "I'll sign." A man's voice came from the doorway. I turned my head with difficulty and saw Daniel walk in. He was Evan's uncle, though only 8 years older than us. He was wearing a dark gray suit, as if he had rushed over from an important event. "Why are you?" My voice was hoarse. "Evan called me. He said he really couldn't get away and asked me to take care of you," Daniel said calmly as he signed the form. "Don't talk. Focus on the surgery." As the anesthesia flowed into my body, I thought, at least Evan remembered to send someone. At least he still cared whether I lived or died. Just a little. The surgery ended at 11 that night. I woke up groggily and saw Daniel sitting on a chair in the hospital room, still handling work on his phone. On the bedside table were a cup of warm water and a bowl of plain rice porridge. "You're awake," he put his phone down. "Does it hurt?" I nodded, then shook my head. My stomach hurt, but my heart felt emptier. My phone lit up. It was a message from Evan. "Baby, did the surgery go well? I really can't leave. My client's mistress is threatening suicide. I'll definitely come see you first thing tomorrow morning. Love you." Client's mistress. Again, client's mistress. In the past 6 months, Evan had used this excuse to take time off more often than I had seen him, wear the same shirt twice. "Checking your phone," Daniel's voice pulled me back. I turned off the screen. "It's nothing." "Evan said he's dealing with a client's mistress." Daniel's tone was casual, but the words themselves were anything but. I looked at him. "You know he's been getting promoted quickly at the PR firm lately," Daniel said slowly, "because he specializes in handling rich people's private matters, including arranging housing, paying hush money, and settling disputes." My heart sank little by little. "Sometimes," Daniel said, meeting my eyes, "to put the client at ease, he'll personally go comfort those mistresses, to make sure they don't say the wrong things." The hospital room was so quiet, I could hear the drip of the IV. Drip, drip. "You mean," my voice was trembling. "What I mean," Daniel said, "is are you sure those women are really just clients' mistresses?" At 2 in the morning, Evan finally arrived. He reeked of alcohol, along with a strong, pungent perfume. The kind of expensive women's fragrance he told me last year on my birthday was too mature and not suitable for you. There was a small red mark on the collar of his white shirt. It looked like lipstick or maybe red wine. "Baby, I'm so sorry." He leaned down to kiss me, but I turned my face away. His hand froze in midair. "I'm tired," I said, closing my eyes. Evan paused, then spoke in that familiar, gentle, apologetic tone. "Try to understand, baby. This client is especially important. His mistress caused a scene downstairs at the office. I had to personally go calm her down." I said nothing. She was very emotional, crying nonstop, so I had to drink a bit with her. Evan continued, his fingers lightly brushing my hair. You know it's all for our future. Once this project is done, I'll have enough money to buy you that bag you've liked for so long. In the past, those words would have softened me. I would have thought that everything he endured was for me. But today, staring at the ceiling, I suddenly felt very cold. Okay, I said, I understand. Evan seemed taken aback. He was probably waiting for me to question him like before. What client? Why did you have to go personally? What's with the lipstick on your collar? But I didn't. I just closed my eyes and said, I'm sleepy. That night, Evan slept soundly on the small bed beside mine. I didn't sleep at all. Watching the sky outside the window fade from pitch black to gray, something inside my heart completely went cold. A week after I was discharged, Evan treated me much better. He came home on time, brought desserts I liked, and volunteered to wash the dishes. Then on Friday night, holding me, he said, Baby, I have to go on a business trip for 3 days next Wednesday. Same client, the mistress situation still isn't resolved. My hands paused while folding clothes. Who is it this time? I asked. My voice was so calm it surprised even me. It's the same one as last time, Mia, Evan sighed. She's especially difficult. The client doesn't want to deal with her anymore, but he's afraid she'll make a scene, so I have to clean it up. Mia. That name, I had seen it countless times on Evan's phone over the past 6 months. The chat history was always completely deleted, but call logs couldn't be erased. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. The longest call lasted 2 hours and 47 minutes. Do you really have to go? I folded the last shirt. I'm the only one who can handle her, Evan said, with a strange sense of pride in his voice. The client trusts me. If I deal with this properly, my year-end bonus will double. Don't you want to move into a bigger place? I looked into his eyes. There was tenderness, guilt, and a hint of impatience. He was waiting for me to be sensible again to say, Okay, go ahead, be careful. Oh, I said, then go. Evan smiled and kissed my forehead. My baby is always so understanding. Understanding. That word, I had been hearing it for 5 years. On Wednesday night, Evan told me he had already arrived out of town and sent me the hotel location. Thursday afternoon, my best friend sent me a photo. In one of the city's most upscale restaurants, Evan was sitting face to face with a young woman. She was smiling sweetly, her hand resting on his. The photo was a bit blurry, but I recognized her profile. It was Mia. She wasn't a client's mistress at all. Or rather, she was the mistress Evan's client needed him to handle, and the way Evan handled her was by becoming her own personal client. I flipped my phone face down on the table and continued making dinner. Tomato and egg noodles, Evan's favorite. At 10 that night, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw Evan, drunk, leaning against the doorframe with the girl from the photo, Mia, standing next to him. Hello, sister-in-law. Mia's smile was saccharine sweet. Evan had too much to drink. I couldn't let him come alone, so I brought him over. She was holding Evan's arm, wearing a diamond ring on her finger. Small, but with a very distinctive design. Exactly like the engagement ring Evan had told me was lost in my drawer. You've gone to a lot of trouble, I said, my voice icy. No trouble at all. Mia helped Evan onto the sofa, then walked into the kitchen to pour herself a glass of water, as if she were at home. Evan was amazing today. He helped us secure a major client. He kept saying I'm smart, that I can handle things. Evan mumbled from the sofa, Mia, don't talk nonsense. I'm not talking nonsense. Mia sat next to him, her voice soft and coaxing. Didn't you say I'm way more sensible than that yellow-faced housewife at home who just cooks all day? I stood at the kitchen doorway, still holding a spatula. Leave, I said. Mia blinked. Sister-in-law, are you mad? Evan and I just have a work relationship. I said leave. Mia's expression changed. She looked at Evan, and her eyes reddened immediately. Evan, sister-in-law seems to have misunderstood. I was just trying to be helpful. Evan rubbed his temples and sat up, frowning at me. Lily, what are you doing? Mia was just being kind. Why are you acting like this? Acting like what? I placed the spatula on the counter. You told me you were on a 3-day trip, and yet you were dining with her in the city. You told me she was a client's mistress, and yet she's wearing my engagement ring. What attitude do you expect me to have? Evan's face darkened. You checked up on me again, he said, standing, his voice cold. How many times have I told you? My work is unusual and involves entertaining. Can you not be so sensitive, so emotional? Sensitive, emotional. These words stabbed me like needles. For 5 years, every time I questioned his late nights, the scent of perfume on him, or his meticulously cleared phone, these were the words he used to describe me. And then I would apologize, feel I wasn't gracious enough, and try harder. But today, looking into his eyes, I suddenly found it all ridiculous. Fine, I said. I'm emotional, I'm sensitive. Then this non-emotional young lady, please leave my home. Tears streamed down Mia's face. She clutched her lower abdomen and slowly crouched. Evan, my stomach hurts. Evan immediately rushed to support her. What's wrong? What happened? Maybe it's because I drank a little earlier. Mia's face turned pale. I'm pregnant. The doctor says I need to rest. Time froze. I stood at the kitchen doorway, watching my husband hold another woman, who said she was carrying his child. And when Evan looked up at me, there was no guilt in his eyes. Only disgust. Lily, he said, you apologized to Mia immediately. I didn't apologize. The next day, Evan took my bank card. Mia nearly had a miscarriage due to emotional stress. She needs compensation, he said matter-of-factly. The money comes from the household fund. There was 80,000 yuan on that card, money my mother had saved for a medical emergency. She had heart disease, and the doctor said she might need surgery. That's my mother's money, I said, my voice trembling. I'll pay it back, Evan said impatiently. Right now, can you just handle the situation? If Mia actually miscarries, how am I supposed to explain it to the client? Client. Again a client. I watched him shove the card into his pocket and leave without looking back. That afternoon, the hospital called. My mother had a heart attack and was rushed to the emergency room. Surgery was needed immediately, with a deposit of at least 50,000 yuan. I called Evan. The first call went unanswered. The second time, he picked up. The background was loud, with music and a woman's laughter. What is it? I'm busy. My mom's in the ER. She needs surgery. Give me the card back or transfer 50,000 for now. A few seconds of silence on the line. I can't access the funds right now, Evan said. I already gave the money to Mia. She just bought supplements to help with the pregnancy. I gripped the phone, my nails digging into my palm. Evan, I said word by word, that's my mother's emergency money. I know, his voice rose. But if you had been a little more sensible yesterday and not caused a scene, would Mia need compensation? Lily, you caused this yourself. You need to take responsibility. He hung up. I stood in the hospital corridor, staring at the payment slip the nurse handed me. The numbers blurred into a haze. In the end, Daniel came and covered the cost. The surgery went smoothly, but my mother needed intensive care, with daily bills pouring out like water. Evan came to the hospital, glanced at her, and left after 10 minutes. Before leaving, he stood at the ward door and said to me, at least because of this emotional incident, Mia may have trouble conceiving in the future. Consider it a cost. His tone was calm, like he was discussing the weather. Watching his back as he walked away, I realized I didn't cry. Because once the tears run dry, your eyes feel like they're on fire. Hot enough to burn. The day my mother was discharged, I didn't tell Evan. Daniel drove us home. He carried my mother's luggage and helped her into the car with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times. Thank you, I said. You're welcome. He glanced at me. You've lost a lot of weight. I said nothing. At home, Evan was unusually present. Seeing my mother, he froze for a moment before forcing a smile. Mom, you're discharged? Why didn't you tell me? I could have come to pick you up. No trouble, my mother said lightly. She used to adore Evan, always saying, my son-in-law is really capable. But during this hospitalization, he had only visited once for 10 minutes. My mother knew the truth. Evan looked a little awkward and turned to me. Lily, we need to talk. In the bedroom, he closed the door. I know you've been wronged lately. He tried to embrace me, and I stepped back. His hand froze in midair. With Mia, it did go beyond work a little. Evan lowered his head, as if confessing. But she's really pitiful, no family, no one to care for her. The client would discard her once done. I was just taking care of her. Taking care to the bed, I asked. Evan's face darkened for a moment, then softened again. That was an accident, we were both drunk, but now she's pregnant. I can't just ignore it. I said nothing. When the child is born, I'll arrange everything properly. Evan held my hand. Give her some money and send her away. Then we can live our lives properly, okay? His palms were warm, but I felt cold. We're not even legally married, I said suddenly. Evan froze. 5 years ago, we had a wedding ceremony, but because of his work, he said, we'll register later when we have time. And then it was delayed, until now. Yes, so, his eyes lit up. Once this is settled, we'll register immediately. Then you'll be my legal wife. We'll buy a big house, have our own children. The future he painted was beautiful. If it were the old days, I would have been tempted. But now, looking into his eyes, all I saw was a practiced liar. Fine, I said. Evan sighed in relief and smiled. I knew it. My baby is always so sensible. Sensible. He said it again. Evan truly thought I had become sensible. I stopped checking his phone, stopped questioning his late nights, stopped caring about the scent of perfume on him. He started bringing Mia into our home. The first time, Mia was a bit reserved, calling me sister-in-law. The second time, she began directing me. Sister-in-law, could you pour me a glass of water? Warm, please. Evan said I shouldn't drink anything cold. The third time, she sat on the master bedroom bed, trying on a new dress I had bought. Evan said this suits me. She twirled in front of the mirror. Sister-in-law, it makes you look a little old. Evan watched her, smiling, his gaze gentle. Gentle, something I had never seen directed at me. I had thought he was incapable of gentleness. Now I realized he simply wouldn't be gentle with me. Take it if you like, I said flatly. Evan glanced at me, apparently surprised by my generosity. Then he told Mia, see, sister-in-law is so kind to you. That night, Evan held me and said, you've really become sensible. Once I handle Mia, we'll get married. I said, fine. Later, after he fell asleep, I got up, opened my laptop, and searched for the city's best divorce lawyer. No. We weren't married. I didn't need a divorce. I needed consultation for property division. The lawyer, Ms. Chen, was very sharp. After I explained, she was silent for a moment. You're not legally married, she said, but you've lived together and some property in your name was accumulated during this time. You can fight for that portion. How much? I asked. She gave a number. Less than I expected, much less. Evan was clever. Most of the assets were in his parents' names or held under company entities. I might get less than a tenth. Also, Ms. Chen adjusted her glasses, if you break up now, he may transfer all assets immediately. You could end up with nothing. I leaned back, feeling completely drained. 5 years. My best 5 years, traded for injuries, a mother who needed care, and a possible outcome of nothing. Isn't there any other way? I asked softly. Ms. Chen hesitated. Unless you can find a stronger legal leverage than him. I didn't understand. 2 days later, Daniel asked to meet me. At the cafe, Daniel pushed a folder across the table. "Looked over it?" he asked. I nodded. It was a list of assets under his name, with so many zeros I had to count twice. "Evan is trying to win a project at my company," Daniel said, stirring his coffee slowly. "If he succeeds, he'll secure his position in the industry and become fully independent." I waited for him to continue. "I can give you this project," Daniel said, looking at me, "but there has to be a legitimate reason. For example, that you are my family." My heart skipped a beat. "I don't understand." "We can register marriage," Daniel said calmly, as if discussing contract terms. "Legally, you become spouses. My portion of assets would automatically become joint property. You can then use this status to legitimately take over that project." I looked at him, searching for a hint of a joke. There was none. He was serious. "Why help me?" I asked. Daniel paused. "3 years ago, my mother was gravely ill. You visited her every day at the hospital, talking to her until her last days," he said. "Evan was on a business trip, but in reality, he was traveling with a client. You said nothing, you just quietly cared for someone who wasn't even related to you." I remembered. Back then, Evan said he had a big project and would be away for half a month. Every day after work, I went to the hospital, fed her, helped her wash, and listened to her stories about Daniel's childhood. "You've been taught to repay kindness," Daniel said. "I have too." I lowered my head and looked at the coffee cup. The steam blurred my vision. "This isn't fair to you," I said softly. "This is a transaction," Daniel replied calmly. "I need a wife and name only to deal with family pressure to marry. You need a legal status and assets to fight back. We each get what we need. And if you meet someone you truly like in the future, then we divorce," Daniel said easily. "I'll make sure you get enough assets so you and your mom can live without worries for the rest of your lives." I clenched my hands, my nails digging into my palms. The pain kept me clear-headed. "What do I need to do?" I asked. "Sign a prenup stating this is a marriage of convenience," Daniel said. "Appear with me when necessary, and—" He paused. "Completely leave Evan, no turning back." I lifted my head and looked out the window. People were coming and going on the street, each of them seeming to have a direction of their own. And I, after being lost for 5 years, had finally seen a path. Even if that path was lined with thorns. "Okay," I said. That night, after signing the prenup, I went home to pack. Evan wasn't there. Mia was. She was lying on the living room couch with a face mask on. When she saw me dragging a suitcase, she sat up. "Heading out, sister-in-law." "Yeah." I didn't explain and went straight into the bedroom. I didn't have much to pack. After 5 years, there were very few traces of me left in this house. A few clothes, some books, and the jewelry box my mom had given me. When I picked up the jewelry box, Mia walked in. "That box is so pretty." Her eyes were fixed on it. "Is it an antique?" "It belonged to my grandmother and was passed down to my mom." I closed the lid. "Can I take a look?" Mia reached for it. I dodged her hand. "That's not convenient." Her expression changed slightly, then she smiled. "Sister-in-law, you're really stingy. Evan said everything in this house is free for me to use." "Not this." I put the box into the suitcase. Suddenly, Mia pressed down on the suitcase. I said, "I want to see it." She was strong. Her nails scraped against the suitcase, making a harsh sound. "Let go," I said. "No," Mia stared at me. "Do you really think you're still the lady of this house? Evan told me once the baby is born, he'll make you move out. Right now, you're just a nanny." My heart felt like it had been drenched in ice water, but my face showed nothing. "Is that so?" I said. "Then I'll wait for him to tell me himself." I pulled the suitcase hard. Mia suddenly let go. The momentum sent me stumbling backward, my waist slamming into the sharp corner of the wardrobe. A surge of pain shot through my abdomen, the surgical site from my appendectomy, not yet fully healed. I sucked in a sharp breath and crouched down. Mia stood over me, looking down. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said, without a trace of sincerity. I didn't mean to, but sister-in-law, you're in such poor health. How can you take care of Evan? You should really step aside sooner rather than later. I couldn't speak from the pain. Cold sweat slid down my forehead. At that moment, the door opened. Evan was back. He saw me crouched on the floor and Mia standing nearby and frowned. What happened? Evan, Mia immediately put on a sobbing voice. Sister-in-law was trying to move out. I wanted to help her, but she wouldn't let me and even pushed me. I almost fell. My stomach hurt so much. Evan's face darkened instantly. He walked over, not to help me, but to support Mia. Are you okay? His voice was shaking with panic. It hurts a little. Mia leaned into his arms. Will something happen to the baby? Evan suddenly turned to me, his eyes like knives. Lily, you knew Mia is pregnant and you still pushed her. Do you have any conscience at all? I clutched my abdomen and slowly stood up. The wound might have reopened. Warm liquid seeped through my clothes. I didn't push her, I said calmly. She tried to take my jewelry box. She let go herself and I hit my wound. You're still arguing, Evan shouted. It's just a stupid jewelry box. If Mia wants to see it, you give it to her. When did you become so selfish and mean? Selfish? Mean. He used those words before, but this time I heard something different. Fear. He was afraid Mia would really get hurt. Afraid something would happen to the baby. Afraid his plan to handle things properly would fall apart. And that fear stripped away the last of his gentle disguise. Give me the jewelry box, Evan said, holding out his hand. I looked at that hand. That hand had once held mine as we walked down the aisle. It had touched my forehead when I had a fever. It had promised to give me a home. Now it was reaching for me, to take away the last thing my mother had left me. No, I said. Evan's gaze turned ice cold. He walked over, grabbed my suitcase, opened it, took out the jewelry box and handed it to Mia. Do you like it? If you do, it's yours. Mia took the box, opened it, and pulled out the most valuable necklace inside, my grandmother's wedding necklace. The pearls had yellowed with age and weren't worth much, but my mom had always said it was a family heirloom. So old, Mia pouted, but the pearls are pretty round, thanks, Evan. She put the necklace on right in front of me. I stood there, looking at Evan, at Mia, at this home I had lived in for 5 years. Suddenly, everything felt absurd. Evan, I said, we're over. Evan froze for a second, then laughed. Over? Lily, stop making a scene. Without me, where can you go? Your mom's still in the hospital. You need money. You need a place to live. Besides me, who would even want you? He was right. Without Daniel, I really would have had nowhere to go. But now I had a choice. That's my problem, I said, zipped up my suitcase and turned to leave. Go, if you leave, don't ever come back, Evan shouted after me. When you come back begging on your knees, I won't soften my heart. I didn't turn around. As I stepped out of the building, the night wind brushed against me. It was a little cold. But inside me, a fire had started to burn. Burning away all hesitation, all attachment, all illusions. I stayed in the hotel for a week. Evan didn't contact me, not a single message. He probably thought I would, like before, calm down after a few days and return on my own. With apology, with compromise, to continue being the sensible Lily. But he didn't know. I had already met with Lawyer Chen 3 times. And I had gone with Daniel to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a marriage certificate. In the red background photo, neither Daniel nor I smiled. The clerk told us to smile, and we barely forced our mouths into a semblance of a grin. Like 2 soldiers completing a mission. Do we need a wedding ceremony? Daniel asked. Yes, I said, and it should be grand. He looked at me, understanding. Send him an invitation. Yeah. Aren't you afraid he'll cause trouble? Yes, I admitted honestly. But I'm more afraid he'll think that after I leave him, I'll live a miserable life. Daniel nodded. Leave it to me. After getting the certificate, I moved into Daniel's apartment. He lived elsewhere. This was just one of his properties. Make yourself at home, he said. If you need anything, just tell me. I started taking care of my mother. I transferred her to a better hospital and hired a professional caregiver. Daniel fronted the costs. When I offered to pay him back later, he said it wasn't necessary. Expenses during the marriage count as joint property, he joked, unusually lighthearted. Even if it's fake. A week later, my old phone rang. It was Evan. I answered. Had enough fun? His voice was icy. Then come back. Mia's been suffering from severe morning sickness. She needs someone to take care of her. I almost laughed. I'm not going back, I said. Lily, don't be shameless. Evan's tone grew impatient. How much is the hotel you're staying in? What about your mom's medical bills? How long do you think you can last? None of your concern. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. Found someone else? Evan asked suddenly, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Who? That old classmate who always chased you. I'll tell you, his monthly salary isn't even enough for you to buy one coat. It's not him. Then who? Evan pressed. Lily, I know you too well. With your personality, no one except me can tolerate you. You'll come back in the end, begging for my forgiveness on your knees. I said nothing. Fine, Evan softened slightly. Come back, take care of Mia until she gives birth. Then I'll give you enough money to support you and your mom. We can part on good terms, okay? Part on good terms. He made 5 years of my emotions, 5 years of my effort, sound like a transaction. And I was the beggar in need of his charity. Evan, I said slowly, do you know what I regret most? That 5 years ago I didn't listen to my mom. What did she say? She said you're unreliable. Your eyes wander too much. Evan sneered. And saying that now does what? Lily, face reality. Leaving me, you are nothing. Then let's see, I said, what I become when I leave you. I hung up and blocked all his contacts. Then I opened my laptop and started working. The project materials Daniel had given me were thick. I had to familiarize myself with all the processes within a week and then take over. It was difficult, but I had no way back. Another week passed. My best friend sent me a message. Evan is looking for you. He went to your mom's old hospital but found she had already been transferred. He's furious, says you're hiding from him on purpose. Let him look, I replied. He also froze your bank card, my friend added. Says you used his money to transfer your mom and calls it theft. I had already expected this. Evan's need for control was extreme. He couldn't accept anything outside his grasp. My disappearance and my mother's hospital transfer were challenges to his authority. So he punished me in the most direct way, cut off my finances. If he had known, the main card he thought I had access to was almost empty. My real savings were in another card he didn't know about, not much, but enough to last a while. If he had known, my mother's medical expenses were being handled by Daniel. If he had known, I was no longer the Lily who needed his charity. But he didn't know. He still lived in his own illusion, that I was his accessory, incapable of surviving without him. So when he discovered I had sold the small apartment I bought before marriage, he completely panicked. That apartment had been bought with a down payment from my parents, in my name. After we married, Evan had always wanted me to transfer it to him. I refused. Now I sold it. The buyer was a friend of Daniel. The deal was quick and fair. When the money went through, Evan somehow got my new number and called, furious. You sold the apartment. Who allowed that? That's our joint property. Legally, it's not, I said calmly. It's my premarital property. I have the right to dispose of it. Are you crazy? The money from the sale, transfer it to me immediately. I used it to pay debts, I said. What I owed you and the hospital is all settled. Where did you get the money to pay the hospital? Your mom's surgery was at least hundreds of thousands. I borrowed it. From who? Evan pressed. Which man? Lily, are you serious? You just left me and already climbed into someone else's bed. How cheap. I didn't get angry. I laughed instead. Evan, do you know? I said. The more frantic you get, the more certain I am that leaving you was the right choice. Heavy breathing came from the other end. Fine, fine, Evan ground out through gritted teeth. You're bold, but I'm telling you, you can't escape. Whenever I want, I can find you, and then I'll make you kneel and apologize to me. I'll be waiting, I said. I hung up and looked out the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange-red. Beautiful. Like a new beginning. Taking over the project went very smoothly. Daniel supported me behind the scenes. The team, initially skeptical, gradually accepted me as they saw my capabilities. This project had originally been Evan's company's target. If he had won it, his small PR firm could have broken into the top tier, finally shaking off the reputation of riding on his uncle's coattails. But now, the project was in my hands. At the first project meeting, the client's representative was surprised to see me. Wasn't Evan handling this before? His company didn't meet our selection criteria, I smiled. We chose a more professional team. It was the truth. Daniel's company was far stronger than Evan. Previously, he hadn't even bid because Daniel had deliberately held back. Now that Daniel was serious, Evan had no chance. After the meeting, the client's lead spoke to me privately. We did consider Evan before, but his proposal seemed a bit short-sighted. Also, there were some concerns about his personal life. We were worried it might affect our company's image. I smiled. Rest assured, our team will give our all. Outside the meeting room, Daniel was waiting for me. How's it going? Should be fine, I said, but Evan might panic and overreact. Let him, Daniel said calmly. The higher he jumps, the harder he falls. Evan, unsurprisingly, began to fight back. He first tried contacting the client, claiming I was incompetent and had used improper means to rise. The client forwarded his email directly to me. I replied, "Thank you for the reminder. I'll prove myself through results." Then he started spreading rumors in industry groups, claiming I was being kept by an older man and using my body to grab projects. Someone sent me screenshots. I forwarded them to lawyer Chen. A week later, Evan received a legal notice accusing him of defamation and damaging business reputation. He raged on social media, but soon deleted his posts, because Daniel had someone contact him, warning that any further false statements would be met with lawsuits. Evan lay low for a while, but I knew he wouldn't give up. Mia became pregnant again. This time it was real, twins. Evan publicly announced it on social media, posting an ultrasound photo with the caption, "I'm going to be a father, thankful for the love of my life." Mutual friends sent me screenshots. "Aren't you angry?" my best friend asked. "Why would I be?" I was checking wedding venues. "He's becoming a dad, I'll send my blessings." "You're serious?" "Of course." I picked a venue and sent it to Daniel. "What do you think of this one?" Daniel replied quickly, "Looks good, book it." The wedding was scheduled for 3 months later. Invitations began production. I didn't post on social media, but through some casual channels, the news reached Evan. He couldn't stay still. "You're getting married," Evan called again, this time not with anger but shock. "With who? That older man keeping you." "His name is Daniel," I said. Silence on the other end for a few seconds. "Daniel? Which Daniel?" "Your uncle Daniel." A silence like death. Then Evan burst into laughter. "Lily, you made up a lie just to spite me. Daniel is my uncle. He could never marry you. Who do you think you are?" "You can ask him," I said. "Of course I'll ask," Evan yelled. "I'm calling him right now. I'll expose your lie." He hung up. 10 minutes later, my phone was vibrating like crazy. Evan had called over 20 times. I didn't answer. Finally, he sent a message, just 3 words. "Why?" I didn't reply. "Why?" "Because you taught me that kindness needs teeth. Because you taught me that loving yourself is more important than loving others. Because you showed me that sometimes the best revenge is living better than the person who hurt you." But I wouldn't tell you this. You don't deserve my explanation. 1 week before the wedding, Evan's company hit a crisis. First, key clients collectively canceled contracts, citing unethical business practices. Then tax authorities conducted an audit and discovered 3 years of tax evasion. Then Mia suddenly posted a long message online, accusing Evan of seducing young girls and abandoning them, attaching chat records, transfer screenshots, and even a recording in which Evan said, "After the baby is born, if it's a boy, we keep it. If it's a girl, give it away." The public outcry was explosive. Evan's reputation collapsed entirely. He tried to contact Mia, only to find she had long moved away, phone disconnected, social accounts deleted. It was as if she had never existed. But the child in her womb was real, the debt was real, and his ruined career was real. Cornered, Evan finally thought of me. Or rather, thought of Daniel. On the wedding day. The weather was perfect. I was getting ready in the bridal room when my best friend ran in, looking tense. "Evan's here, outside causing a scene. He wants to see you." Security. They're holding him back, but he's really agitated. He said if you don't see him, he'll barge in. I looked at myself in the mirror, dressed in my wedding gown. Beautiful. But this beauty wasn't for him. "Let him in," I said. "What?" My friend's eyes widened. "Are you crazy? Today's your wedding." "Precisely." I adjusted my veil. "I want him to see clearly that his end is my beginning." When Evan was escorted in by security, he was a mess. His suit was wrinkled, hair disheveled, eyes red. He froze when he saw me. He probably didn't expect that I would actually be sitting in a bridal gown, in the makeup room. "Lily," his voice was hoarse, "are you serious? Wasn't the invitation sent to you?" I smiled. "Why are you doing this to me?" Evan suddenly lost control. "I'm the man you loved for 5 years. How can you marry my uncle? Are you doing this to get revenge? Tell me." I looked at him calmly. "Revenge on you?" I repeated the word. "Evan, you overestimate yourself. My life isn't lived to get back at anyone." "Then why?" "Because Daniel respects me." I cut him off. "Because he doesn't treat me like a maid, doesn't use my money to support another woman, doesn't tell me to figure it out yourself when my mother was gravely ill. Because he sees me as an equal, not as an accessory." Evan's face went pale. "I can change," he murmured. "I can cut ties with Mia, I can treat you well, we can start over." "Too late." I stood up. "Evan, from the day you made me kneel and apologize to Mia, from the day you stole my mother's jewelry box, from the day you said, 'Without me, you're nothing,' from that moment, it was already over." "I did." "You did." I looked him in the eyes. "You've always thought I'm not good enough for you. You think I'm ordinary, boring, that no one else would want me but you, so you could hurt me however you liked, knowing I wouldn't leave." My voice was calm, but every word was like a needle. "But now I've left," I said, "and I've found someone who truly values me. Evan, this ending is the one you chose for yourself." Evan slumped in the chair, drained of all energy. "I was wrong." He covered his face. "Lily, I was really wrong. Just give me one more chance." The door of the makeup room opened. Daniel walked in, wearing his groom's suit, tall and striking. He didn't even look at Evan. He went straight to me and naturally took my hand. "It's time," he said softly. I nodded. We walked out side by side. As we passed Evan, he suddenly leapt forward, grabbing my wrist. "You can't marry him," he shouted. "You're mine, you'll always be mine." Security rushed over and restrained him immediately. Daniel stood behind me, shielding me, his eyes cold as he looked at Evan. "Let her go." His voice was low, but it carried weight. "Uncle," Evan grasped at a lifeline. "Uncle, help me. My company is going bankrupt. Lend me some money for my father's sake." "Your father's sake," Daniel said, "was used up the moment you bullied Lily." Evan froze. "And," Daniel added, "if you harass Lily again, I will make sure you disappear from this industry completely. I mean it." Evan's grip loosened. He collapsed to the ground like a puddle of mud. I looked at him one last time. The man who once made my heart ache, made me feel small, made me suffer. Now he was just a pathetic shadow on the floor. "Let's go," Daniel whispered. I linked my arm with his, and we walked toward the wedding venue. Behind us came Evan's sobs. I didn't look back. Not once. The wedding was grand. Daniel invited prominent figures from the industry, and many members of the media attended. At the end of the red carpet, I spotted Evan sitting in the corner. He didn't know how he got in, but no one stopped him. Daniel said he should see it with his own eyes. The ceremony began. The officiant asked, "Daniel, do you take Lily to be your wife, to love and cherish her in sickness and in health, in wealth and in poverty, till death do you part?" Daniel looked at me seriously. "I do." Then the officiant asked me the same question. "I do." When exchanging rings, whispers rippled through the crowd. I heard the bride used to date Evan. More than that, almost married him. So how did she end up marrying his uncle? Who knows? High society drama, I guess. I ignored them. When Daniel kissed me, applause erupted. I saw Evan's expression. Pain, distortion, total collapse. Then he stood up. "I object," he shouted. The room went silent. All eyes turned to him. Evan rushed onto the stage and grabbed the microphone. "This wedding is a sham. Lily is marrying Daniel just to get back at me. There's no real love between them." Gasps filled the room. Daniel remained calm and took another microphone. "First," he said, "Lily and I are legally married. We received our marriage certificate 3 months ago." Our marriage certificate photo appeared on the big screen, the date clearly visible. "Second," Daniel continued, "regarding revenge." He looked at me. I nodded and took the microphone. "That's true," I said, looking at the guests, and at Evan, who was pale as death. "I did want you to see how well I could live after leaving you." Evan's eyes lit up, thinking he had the upper hand. "Everyone heard that, she admits it." "I admit I wanted to make you regret it," I smiled. "But I do not admit it was revenge. Revenge is the act of the weak against the strong. Evan, in my eyes, you were never strong." Evan's smile froze. "You were always a pathetic creature, using deceit and emotional manipulation to satisfy your own vanity. Your so-called success is built on others' pain. Your so-called charm is built on lies. Your so-called love is nothing but calculation after calculation." The audience was so silent, you could hear the breath. "Standing here today," I said, squeezing Daniel's hand, "I want to thank you. Thank you for teaching me that kindness has boundaries. Thank you for showing me that loving yourself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. And thank you for, over 5 years, giving me the harshest lesson of my life." I looked at Evan and said each word. I have graduated from that lesson. Applause thundered through the hall. Evan stood there, like a ridiculous clown. He wanted to speak, but the microphone had already been taken by security. He tried to rush forward, but was held back. In the end, all he could do was watch me and Daniel cut the cake, toast, and accept blessings. Like a couple truly in love. Although we all knew this marriage started as a transaction. At least in this transaction, there was respect, equality, and genuine care. That was enough. Halfway through the ceremony, someone ran in and whispered something in Evan's ear. His face changed dramatically, and he stormed out. Later, we found out Mia had gone to his company, taken the last of her valuables, and left a hospital record of her miscarriage. The twins were gone. Cause: emotional shock leading to severe hemorrhaging. And Mia herself, after taking Evan's last bank card, vanished without a trace. Evan was left with nothing, neither money nor child. When the wedding ended, Daniel received the news. Evan's company had officially declared bankruptcy. He personally owed millions, and all his assets had been frozen. Daniel and I got into a car and headed to the airport. We were going on our honeymoon. Although it was only symbolic, Daniel said, If we're putting on a show, let's do it properly. On the way to the airport, I received one final message from Evan. Lily, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please come back, let's start over. I can't live without you. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied, then go die. Blocked him, deleted the message. Like removing a virus. A year later, Daniel and I's marriage was still ongoing. But we were more like partners or friends. He found the best cardiologist for my mother, and her surgery was a success. I managed part of his business operations, and the performance was solid. We lived in the same building, but on different floors, each with our own space. Occasionally, we attended events together, playing the part of a loving couple. Most of the time, we were busy with our own work. And that was fine. News about Evan occasionally reached me. After his bankruptcy, he tried to borrow money from former clients, but no one helped. He went to his parents. They said they had long since cut ties. Daniel had told them all the good deeds Evan had claimed over the years. Finally, he worked at a small company at the bottom level, but was quickly fired for his temper and attempts to harass female colleagues. I heard he now lived in a rental in a crowded urban village, drinking every day. Once, he waited for me outside my office, unshaven, looking like a beggar. Lily, he reached out to grab me. Security stopped him. I just want to say a few words, he begged. Just a few. I allowed the security to step back slightly. Go ahead. My child with Mia is really gone. His eyes were red. I have nothing now, Lily. Please come back. Let's start over. I promise I'll treat you right. I looked at him. The man who once made me love him to the point of humiliation now evoked not even a trace of sympathy. Evan, I said, it's over. No, as long as I love you, it's not over. You never loved me, I shook my head. You loved the fool who unconditionally tolerated you, forgave you, waited for you, but that fool is dead. He froze. Dead on the hospital operating table, dead in the living room while kneeling and apologizing, dead in the bedroom where you stole the jewelry box, I said calmly. You killed her yourself. Evan opened his mouth, but could not speak. And, I added, I'm pregnant. His eyes widened sharply. Daniel, his voice trembled. Legally, yes, I said. In fact, it was part of the agreement between Daniel and me. He needed an heir, and I needed a real family. We did IVF, using his sperm and my egg. The child would carry my bloodline and inherit part of his estate. It was a transaction, but also a choice. Evan stood there, stunned as if struck by lightning. So, I looked at him one last time. Don't come back. Preserve what little dignity you have left. I turned and got into the car. In the rearview mirror, Evan was crouched on the ground, holding his head, shoulders trembling. But this time, I didn't look back. Not once. 3 months later, Daniel and I moved abroad. He had business there, which I managed. My mother came with us, saying the air was better for her heart. Our child was born in spring, a girl. I named her Zai, meaning morning light, a symbol of a new beginning. Daniel adored her. Though we weren't real spouses, he was a good father. At least 1,000, 10,000 times better than Evan. On her full-month celebration, I received a letter. No signature, but the handwriting was Evan's. Just one sentence. If I had treated you well back then, would this all have been mine? I tore the letter and threw it in the trash. No ifs. The road is chosen by oneself, and so is the ending. Another spring, I was walking in the garden with the stroller when my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I answered. Lily, it was Evan's voice, hoarser than ever. I have terminal liver cancer. The doctor says at most 3 months. I said nothing. Can I see you one last time? He asked, choking on tears. Just once, I want to apologize. I looked ahead. Daniel was walking toward me, carrying a toy that Zai had dropped. The sun was bright, the flowers in the garden blooming. I'm busy, I said. I hung up and blocked the number. Daniel came over. Who called? Wrong number, I said. He nodded, asking nothing more. Zykud in the stroller, reaching out. I picked her up, her soft little body pressed against me, carrying the scent of milk. Mommy, she murmured. My heart swelled. All the past hurt, betrayal, humiliation suddenly seemed distant. Like a past life. In this life, I had my mother, my daughter, my career, my future. And a partner who, though not a lover, treated me with enough respect. Enough. Truly enough. Let's go, Daniel said. Time to eat. I nodded, pushing the stroller, walking side by side with him. The sunset stretched our shadows long. Like a family of 3. Even if we knew we were. But at least it looked that way. And that was enough. After all, life isn't a fairy tale. But we can choose to live it the way we want.